I like working from home, but I also like the opportunity to actually go out to the office and see people, even though it's like I'm not going into the office to see my team, but there's still other people there that I can just kind of like bounce ideas off. So how would you?
Lead it
Yeah.
through social. You've literally like I've just come back from Kenya today, which was 200 people from across the globe coming together as leadership. And yeah, you can work remote, and we do throughout the year, but there is very important times where you do need to bring those groups together to have a beer, break some bread, see the whites of people's eyes, and actually have a genuine connection, you know. But when you find the culture works, you're giving people hugs and pats on the back and high fives, even though that's the first time you've met them, but it's not because it's 9 months of virtual work down the line, and people have, especially as recruiters, we're actually quite lucky that we get to, you know, intricately get involved with very senior stakeholders through all levels within a business. We have quite a unique role. Maybe this doesn't lend itself so well if you're someone that sits like in a very unique area that's more enclosed in terms of kind of like the spread and visibility of your work. But like I found that so valuable. And team socials, your Christmas get-togethers, I think these are all things that bind that culture. You know, I'm quite lucky that I work with a lot of people in different markets across Africa, and there's a whole very awesome culture of togetherness that comes from that, where we've got chants and songs and things that bind us. That it would have been like maybe a bit more banter and comedy in my agency days, but it's still something that creates a collective identity, and that's something that's really powerful.
Yeah.
I think companies can drive this, right? If your mission means something and you've got a clear message on what you're delivering as your value proposition, that is your unique North Star that everyone should be behind. And people need to understand where they sit in that. A lot of what businesses fail, regardless of whether you're going remote, is they're not communicating from the bottom of the ladder, right, the kind of the base of the pyramid, right the way through to the top. What are the goals? What does your work mean to this goal and objective? That's something that's been really well communicated in the business I'm in. So it's like socials, communication, to kind of go back into kind of two basic points
Yeah, I'd agree. I also think because even though we are obviously for us, we have that kind of, freedom within the framework and that kind of real structure, across the sales business, across all locations, so UK, Germany, and the US. My team are all based in Germany. So for us, it's like, they spend time with the sales teams and they're in it, and they're also, working really flexibly and hybrid. But for us as a team, that connection, that unity that we have, like I feel like really blessed as well because it's so strong. And I think equally just the level of communication we have with one another, like even just things like we have a separate chat just for wins. We're like it's literally like wins of the week, and it goes off daily, and they're sharing. So really avid in kind of sharing, with one another the wins, the things that we're really proud of, so we can spend that time to celebrate one another. We get together on such a regular basis as well. And I think for me also that like psychological safety as well, that when you're on the call, that people can feel like they can really talk honestly about how they're feeling, and that those things like real relationships, like authenticity and psychological safety is so important in business, to foster those kind of relationships. So, but that thing about like socials, and it makes such a difference, remembering the small things as well that matter, as a people leader. It's recognizing those things and, being quick to, to check in with people and stuff like that. Really important.
I'd say to add to that, you're both on the money, and we do the same, but get Slack. Slack is where it's at. And I worked at a company where they went from Slack to, I won't mention the name of the platform, engagement just went like that. And encourage people on Slack as well. Like our teams, there's loads of teams there where, even if I'm not in that team, it's open, you can see what they're up to. We do quizzes and stuff like that, and we do sort of regular things. So Slack is quite a good place. And also having like we with the quizzes is fun, and there's me and one other who win, so we win quite a lot. So we've been banned from doing quizzes in the Slack teams, but it's just nice to have. We have like random where people post pictures of their dogs or a funny meme and stuff like that, and it's not work related, but it's this kind of stuff you share at work with your friends, don't you, and your sort of colleagues. So it's really important. But yeah, we have quarterly meetups, and we do socials and stuff like that for the people who can get it, and then for the people who live a bit further out, for the ones that can't make it, they're also included with all the other stuff we do as well. So Yeah, there's lots of things you can do to bring people together, but it sounds like you guys are right on the money.
Are you use a tool like Gather, you know, like the old virtual office space? It looks a bit like a Pokemon game, and you've got like these like hot rooms where you can pop in and pop out, and those are quite cool. Like I've like trialed them. I don't think I've never quite managed to get the business to get fully behind them, but they're pretty cool where because it's the same thing with Slack, you know, like if your green light's on, you game on for a chat, right? Same kind of thing. You know, maybe we're using Teams. It's perhaps not quite as easy to kind of pin and put all your chats in the place that you want, but broadly the business has a high proficiency, so it works. But like email's virtually dead. Is kind of what I would experience in my current and previous maybe 2 or 3 workplaces. You know, a messaging system is where it's at. If all else fails, WhatsApp. You know, I'm sure we're part of some pretty good WhatsApp communities as well. But yeah, proper a really good sentiment there, mate. Really.
Yeah, some really good tips. I love the one, Hannah, you mentioned about wins of the week, because it actually gets people thinking about what the achievements. Celebrate those wins for sure.
I always say to my team, whenever I catch someone kind of going, "Oh, it's only a little win," I'm like, "A win is a win."
Win.
But yeah, and those things as well, that kind of, you know, celebration together, and also that we go through the challenges together.
It's single-handedly what fixes things. Like the team that I've literally walked into 18 months ago was a team that didn't feel the love, didn't feel the encouragement. They were doing a bloody good job, but because they weren't getting that encouragement, they were like, "Nah, we're not that great." And you know, you're walking with a much quieter footprint because you don't realize how great you are. And actually, I'm so behind you. Like that little bit of kudos. It's not all pay rises, commission, and bonuses. It's actually just like some genuine love for a bit of hard work and some work done right, you know, and it can be incremental, right? It's going to be a bit corny in a pitch of my organization. We have a value called progress, which means it's not 100% done every day. It's a millimeter in the right direction is moving forward. So the trajectory is the importance. Where's it going? Sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's not the trajectory. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you work hard.
And actually, gratitude has a high ROI.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. You know, going like, I genuinely thank you. Recognizing those things. I think, especially, you know, as a people leader as well, it's being really intentional to recognize those things. You know, try not to miss them. Actually, it's what means a lot to people. And I think even, you know, as the interesting world that is kind of AI that, you know, is happening around us, that will probably change the nature of our roles in the next kind of 4 or 5 years, that human-led approach, that's something that things like AI will just never compete with. It won't compete with EQ. You know, it's like that. And that's that bit that I think from an inclusion perspective, and that is led by the people. And that human connection, and it's what I would also say in terms of interviewing and going through that process. You know, you've got to lean into those human things, those human skills that are going to be, you know, incredibly important, you know, as we continue to move forward.
Amazing. So we've touched quite a lot about the different areas. Like, for example, Hannah, you've mentioned about like flexibility and choice. Sam, you've also mentioned about having that transparent process in like the hiring process as well. Like, what I'd really love to kind of touch upon is like, you know, well, you know, in a point of trying to attract top talent, like what sort of like inclusive tips can you offer that can actually, you know, help an organization not only just attract these candidates, but like, you know, attract top talent, but also in a more inclusive way as possible. So yeah, that'd be great to touch on.
I'd say not just having your talent teams talk about it online, like your EVP and your employee brand should come from everyone. So I did a piece last year about people sharing their journeys and their stories on LinkedIn or wherever, speaking or blogs and stuff like that. So our team like to get out and speak about it. And even stuff simple as, "Oh, here's my dogs, I'm going for a walk on the beach." It will get a lot of traction on LinkedIn, and then it will fall into the right hands of people looking for that kind of lifestyle. And then they'll look into the company a bit more and see that, oh, more people are doing this and more people having a better way of working. So I think just speaking more about it and posting more from the company page and stuff like that, and speaking to the right people is really important. So I encourage, shouldn't just be the talent team. We're good at speaking and good at shouting about ourselves, but other people have got just as good stories to tell as well. So that's what I'd say.
And people buy from people. People will engage 10 times more with a person than they actually do an employer brand. Like EVP and your brand has got to stand the test of time. It's got to stand really strong in this market, and it's got to be true and authentic. But absolutely, I think employee advocacy is massive when it comes to attracting incredible talent to the business. And I totally agree with you. I'm always like, talent teams, that relationship between talent and hiring manager, the way it should be seen is that it's everyone's responsibility, to kind of hire and attract incredible talent into the business. I would definitely say, like, this is like genuinely an area that I am so passionate about, and I like as an actionable thing that I like really like as something that you could literally do after this webinar. Is like, check things like your job ads. Like, honestly, the amount of ads that I see that will say things like 5+ years of experience, 10+ years of experience, needs a degree qualification to a role that actually may not require a degree qualification. Like, these are things that are really important. And to give you like some context, like in my role, so I've been in a, I guess, an internal talent acquisition role now for probably about 8 years. But I saw a role that was advertised that was basically my role, all the role and responsibilities I'd done. But the first requirement was 15+ years of experience with a further 5+ years of experience managing teams of 25. And I was like, how interesting. Like, I meet 100% of what the role's responsibilities are. And I've probably done more than that, but I'm the first person that would be probably discounted from that advertisement. So it's thinking about how you position things, because an advert is marketing. You are advertising your opportunity. So think about and look at things like, is there an unnecessary barrier in this advertisement, that is meaning it's limiting my talent pool? You could be missing out on incredible talent. So things like years of experience is one that I'm really passionate about, because I think time is a very poor metric of someone's skill, because time passes regardless of outcome and result. So change it to looking for someone with skills in XYZ or experience in X. Be more granular rather than saying 10+ years or 5 years of experience here. Things like degrees as well. I'm non-degree educated. So again, that would be another reason that I wouldn't be seen in that role. So I think it's important to look at everything. Think about inclusive hiring. How are you positioning that externally, and how are you reducing barriers to entry?
We might have to even strip that back one step further, because all your points are 100% valid. But as one of the biggest things that I found in my recruitment career at whatever level I've sat in is the alignment of what a market in a given moment in time is going to give you versus your role. And the fact that you probably brought a brief to me that's 3 years old and it's a copy paste from there's about 10 projects that have completely transformed that business area. But you're giving me the spec that was from there. And it's like, how about you go away and think about the top 5 things in a very subjective context of what you actually want, and actually distill it further. Like, absolutely right around kind of barriers to entry. I don't think job ads in general tell a good enough story. And a lot of regardless of gender, the big thing that you want from a job ad, to touch on a point that you made, Sam, about kind of volume is absolutely important, but also so is the quality element. And you'll find, and we know this as recruiters, that we've sat there with maybe 600 CVs in a pipeline, and maybe you'd argue that maybe 550 of them are probably not ones we wanted to really read. And that's because someone's just clicked a button rather than really considered the job ad. And that's because zero effort was invested in the advert, because it wasn't calibrated. We didn't think about kind of diversity. We didn't think about how that role speaks to the communities and the market in general. We're trying a lot in our current environment where I am now to think more about, hey, Miss Hiring Manager, how sell this role to me like I'm your friend, and start building your narrative from what would we tell our friends about a role, right? If I asked you, Hannah, about a job in your organization, we know each other, you're definitely going to sell that job better to me than the job ad might, because of the relationship, the hooks, the pulls, the things that you pull into that narrative. Absolute killer. Like, that is fire in terms of attracting the best candidates. Statistically speaking, right, in the organization I'm in right now, we're probably getting 12 or 13,000 applicants a month. on average, we're probably running about 100 roles as a ballpark monthly. So it's a lot of our inbound. And we're probably hiring as a channel about 88%. So it's the organic inbound channel is absolutely massive for my organization. And we can have other conversations about referrals and things. And I know there's a whole literature and thought patterns behind what's best, but like that narrative and nurturing your brand and what you're bringing forward is key, because my recruiters don't have to sweat it as hard. That's just the reality. It's speed. You know, we probably hire at an entry level a much more junior set of like entry level workforce, which makes the big bulk of our hires. And like the CVs that look the same, A to B, they're very similar. You could almost overlay them on top of each other because there's not as much commercial experience in that resume. It makes it a lot harder. Yeah, if I said, hey, go find me a chief operating officer, that role is infinitely probably more easy to work than a junior mid-level role where there's going to be a much bigger base of candidates, and that advert is key. Application processes also, so thinking about getting more information, because traditionally we're told the longer the application, the less likely you are to get the right candidate. But actually, if people are investing in your recruitment process from the application stage, we're actually seeing better quality, which would go against everything I would have told you 2 or 3 years ago. I'd been like, no, quick link, quick press on LinkedIn, get that CV in the system, let's get reading. But that's not what we're seeing now. Like, our market is conscious. Do I want this job? These are the things that I'm seeing, but it's a slow burner because it's going completely against what has been the norm for the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, I remember seeing a job ad one time where they had at the top like remote first, and then if you scroll down, you go further and further, they said you have to be in 1 to 2 times in the office, and I was like, well, you're kind of mixing up the language here, like
hybrid then.
And I think, like, are you trying to attract people to just quickly get into the job and then find out, oh my god, it's not really a remote first job? You have to be fully transparent, and like you guys had mentioned about building structure and like just owning it. Like, this is how we work. Like, whether you're hybrid, whether you're fully in the office or remote first, you have to be like, well, this is how we are, and this is how we aim to work. And I think there's the whole transparency piece. You have to be transparent, otherwise you can't sell candidates a dream and then completely go back on it.
You do get it go the other way. So we've had a few people who say, hey, I really want a remote job, and we're in Europe, we're exclusively remote. Our office is literally in London, a satellite office. It is for very select meetings. It's not really a co-working space. So if you're someone that joins us from a remote team, we've actually had it go the other way. Actually, yeah, this is lonely. I don't want, you touched on this, Sam. So even though there was that transparency, 6, 9 months down the line, that person's going, yeah, this actually doesn't work for me. So that's another careful consideration. Is it too much isolation for what you can handle?
And that's what we were saying as well. We had to go through that process of hearing from our people. What were they enjoying? What were they finding challenging? And also thinking about what was the culture that through the environment that we have, like what was the culture that we wanted to be able to drive, and how do we want people to, to feel with that?
Totally.
Yes. And that actually just brings up a point of where, like, when someone starts, that maybe in the beginning of when they first start a job, they may have different kind of demands and needs, and maybe they do want to just fully work like in an office, and then it gets to a point maybe halfway through their career, they're like, oh, actually I do want a bit more flexibility, but the organization is still very maybe office first policy. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, how would people go about having those kind of conversations to kind of like drive a bit of change or a bit of a more flexible culture
and to retain?
Because exactly, yeah,
as people grow, throughout their career, and whatever that might be, we talked about it, things will change, right? And they're going to require different things, and so you've got to also think about it from a retain perspective. It's about also looking at how do you retain, your great talent. How do you demonstrate agility and flexibility as a business through change? So yeah.
Can always be way more jarring than others, can't it? Sometimes. Sometimes you're like, oh, that hurt. I think keeping it fair. So I remember sitting in environments before it was popular to work from home, and you'd be like, I actually quite fancy just getting my head down and getting some work done. But unless you were like sick or a parent there wasn't that flexibility. So when I think about me as a younger recruiter that could sit there and burn out and do 12 hours and no one would blink, it became like this done thing culture, didn't it? Yeah, you got to earn your stripes, put the hours in, put the time. But actually, this is the old culture. You know, it wasn't that long ago. You know, when I was sitting there going, "Oh, okay, I got to get me some kids so I can get out of the office when I want." You know, kidding.
Bit of a balance. It's a balance.
Flexibility.
It's a bit of a balancing thing, because I think, you know, I've seen some companies where they build in a WeWork or whatever thing for people to, if they really want to, they can go and join, which I think is a great idea, because I do know what it's like to be in with people. But if you're like, I live in the countryside now in Hampshire, it takes a while to get into London, but I'm fine with that, and that's the whole reason I've done it, is to have more space and stuff like that. So you kind of you pick your battles, I suppose. If you really want to work in those environments, then go for those jobs and seek them out. We can support as much as we can, but ultimately this is what we're set up to do. So I think, just from a candidate point of view, go and seek it out. Yeah, but I've seen that before. I can't remember who it was, but they offer their people, you know, the chance. We get £30 a month to spend with our colleagues. If we're in London, we can go out for lunch. So just encourages people to get together and have lunch. And it's like a meal kind of thing, which is pretty cool. But I think I racked up about 400 quid by not spending that, being sat here remote first, which is good. So it's not for that though. But yeah, it's there's ways around it.
Yeah, and people just need to think, you know, about what they also really want. And in that journey, I think if you can, you know, of talent looking for their next opportunity and the kind of companies they want to be with, I think spending that time to look at the values, you know, look at all the platforms that are going to be telling you kind of what it's like to work in that business, and understanding the EVP. And I think for us, you know, it's like we've all talked about, as being transparent, owning, you know, what our proposition is and what to expect in the business. But yeah.
Amazing. And also, I was just thinking about, like, in terms of the culture, and like, as you mentioned, Hannah, about having those conversations, I think it's so key. But rather than, you know, organizations just pulling out of the blue and saying, right, back to the office, but you haven't really had those conversations with your employees, like, what exactly do they really want? Like, you know, it's going to impact them, whatever the decision. But I think it's coming to a consensus about like what can benefit the organization as a whole. So yeah.
And exactly that. And that's where you have to, you know, through those, bringing people on a journey and having those conversations, looking at the data, you know, you do have to also make bold decisions there. And but I think it's a bit that just, you know, we need to keep talking about it. It's going to continue to evolve, as will the world of work in general. I think the next kind of 3 to 5 years will be really interesting. The last 4 to 5 years have also been, as everyone could probably agree, a wild ride.
Amazing. Is there anything else anyone wanted to add or just highlight in terms of this topic?
And I could just keep on talking for like the entire afternoon. You actually need to go. I will need to jump off, but thanks, Sam, as well, for the intro and the invite.
I was going to say that we at that awards thing the other day, it was pretty inspirational, wasn't it? Seeing how
it was so good.
This and like believing it. 'Cause sometimes when you're on your own and you're working, you kind of think, oh, other people getting this, or other people doing it, and it was just so nice to see that. So yeah, no, nice to meet, and I've really enjoyed the call. Thanks a lot, everyone. And
yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
See you all again.
See you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rachel. Great questions as well.
Yeah, really good.
Great insight. So thank you so much, everyone.
See you guys as well.
Bye.
Glad to see you.
Bye, Rachel. Bye.